All right, so let me see what we got for Q&A. What I'm going to do is there was a question actually from the sidebar that was perfect because they were asking about future-proofing is essentially, I'll reframe what they said, future-proofing the approach for Copilot business readiness. If you've done a lot of the things we've already mentioned, of course, you're in a position where your foundations are good, right, as an organization. And a lot of times we think of it like this. We think of that triangle from the bottom up. The key difference on future-proofing is to recognize that you are going to increase your investments over time. And so one of the things that I find really helpful when I'm talking to CFOs or like people that are a bit more cautious, maybe rightly so, they're like, hey, is this real? Is AI really that transformative? Is I always emphasize the fact that what the industry is doing is you're going to see greater and greater levels of investment in terms of competitive advantage if we look across the industry on various AI investments. And the problem is if you just invest in those capital P systems, which by the way are the things that are really easy to make decisions. So like as an organization, you're like, oh, I can achieve better seller output. Let's, invest in Copilot for sales or whatever. Let's invest in, these experiences. Of course, those are easier to measure and they're easier to like get funding and move that forward with. The problem is if you don't have this baseline of AI councils, AI support, adoption, et cetera, even those programs and projects will not be as successful. And so we always look at it as like, if you're an organization and you're trying email and all these other tools for the first time, websites, et cetera, of course you need to help understand how we support, how we champion, how we proactively scale those tools. And the difference with AI is the pace is much faster. So the problem is the timing, right? It goes back to years, not decades. So when you start to like map this out with, I don't want to say naysayers, but very cautious financial individuals, you often they will make the same conclusions you are, that it makes a compelling reason to start with some of these investments sooner rather than later. And the level of investment is fine if it's minor. We have seen customers, and I'm not suggesting this is the path you want to move forward, and hopefully people will use this against you in your organization to get more funding. But we have seen customers take the $30 per user per month. They've taken like 1/3 of that in the first 3 to 6 months, and that's their investment. And then that's all they planned for Copilot. And we have seen that still work better than, of course, no investment. Like that, you can do a lot. You can be smart, make the right investments, think about teams scaling, think of easy things to implement that you can start to scale and improve, or individually you as a stakeholder can drive success without funding. Those are things that we can do. But what will happen is when you do that, the demand, it's like project intake, the demand will increase exponentially. And when you start to see all these business users and business leaders saying, I want to be able to solve this problem, and this is where IT sees it, right? They see it in the intake project funnel, right? They say, oh, I want AI to solve this problem. Now, IT knows, I mentioned this in the technical session, 82% of the requests, when we at least evaluated it recently across multiple customers, 82% of the requests where people said they needed a Copilot solution ended up not being Copilot. It was, Power Apps, it was Microsoft Lists, it was, some other system. So, there's a gap there where it's capturing imagination, which is good. It's a good problem to have. And people want to solve, existing business pain points with it, but they're kind of just paintbrushing everything as an AI solution. And again, that's not a problem. We can help navigate that, but that ends up driving the investment. So I've seen some of those resistant financial investments, they'll shift where the idea is let's build that momentum. And then after we have 6 months, you'll have quite a few of these projects in the intake funnel. You categorize them effectively, either saying they originated from AI or that they have an AI future. Maybe they're not AI today. And then you can bring that back to those finance people and say, look, this is what we're seeing. Again, you're showing a trend line. You're showing a curve, probably not even a linear line that shows that this is increasing. And then that reiterates why those investments that we were talking about earlier need to be expanded and done so that we're ready for next year and the year after, and so on and so forth. Anyways, that was a bit long-winded, but hopefully that explains both this visual a little bit more and answers that question. There's another one that's a good one here. So I kept this out because I didn't know if it'd be overwhelming for you guys. So there is a thing called Microsoft Collaboration Architecture Framework. Thank you to the Microsoft person who recommended this. Again, Microsoft has a lot of resources I didn't highlight in this session. So one of the things that does come up is like, how do we use the learnings from others and kind of build on those from our own organization? I do think that there are good frameworks. That learning pathway that I recommended for champions, as an example, or people who are trying to drive success around adoption. If you go through that pathway, you'll be introduced to this framework. And essentially the idea behind it, and it's a good one, is to kind of think about how these correlate with one another, how we improve collaboration architecture, because again, so much of Copilot for Microsoft 365 isn't about how you individually work with these different tools, right? It's about how you collaborate with them, right? How do you work with PowerPoint together? How do you work with Excel together? Like whether it's, sharing and it's sequential, it's still, a very much collaborative journey. So I do think this overlay of collaboration architecture and thinking through like how that pattern of adoption works is 100% applicable to Copilot. The challenge I have is a lot of this is designed with this idea of individual or broader departmental organizations. And I think the team-based model, as I've mentioned, is where we're seeing a lot of the growth. So I think the trick is when you look at any of these frameworks, it could be this, it could be like a community one, it could be like a certification provider. I would think about how does this scale to the team level? And when I say team, I mean like the, those nominated 3 to 11 or whatever people teams. So that's my only feedback there, but it is a great set of resources Microsoft has in this space. And let me check real quickly if there's anything else. If there's nothing else from the team, yeah, I don't see anything from this. So I think we're good. Thanks everyone so much for your time. Let me kind of wrap back to the end slides. I really appreciate the attention. You guys have been really generous with sticking on for longer. Looking forward to hearing from you, what you'd like to see more of. We've done the technical readiness, the business readiness, and we have the plugin one coming. If you're interested in that full day webinar workshop series, you can of course do like private ones earlier and get your feedback. So you can get like, instead of paying to go to Microsoft 365 conference and seeing us do that live, you can have that for your team internally. So please reach out and, abuse our generosity. See if there's anything we can do to help you. Thanks so much, everyone.